that's really what I'm doing, like bringing out the best in a kid and figuring and helping them realize like who they are. You are meaningful individual. You have a purpose. There's things that you are good at. There's things that you are built for. Things that you are capable of that make you special. So helping them discover that will produce results, and those are the results I'm really interested in.
So, welcome to the Adventures in Learning podcast. Sometimes when you are with a group of teachers, you meet somebody and you think, this is somebody I want in my life. This person has the creativity and the vision and the skill set to really connect with kids, to connect STEM and STEAM and literacy. And you go, this is somebody I want to be my new best friend.
Mhm.
When I was at Steve Spangler's Science in the Rockies this summer, I met Jonathan Payne. And Jonathan is one of those people I immediately wanted to be my new best friend. And I'm
Aw.
so excited he's here on the show with us today. He is a pre K through 5 STEAM specialist with the Lackland ISD schools in Texas. But he's also the founder and director of the Innovative Mind Lab. So we are going to have a really cool conversation about all things STEAM today. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me, Diane. I'm excited to be here, and I want to be your best friend too.
Well, then good. We'll consider it official as of today.
Yes.
So, Jonathan, let's start by talking a little bit about your adventures in learning. How did you get to be where you are today, where you're bringing STEAM to kids from pre K through kindergarten? How did that happen?
Well, it's kind of one of those things where you fall into your purpose, you stumble into it. I was actually an insurance salesman before I became a teacher, and just wasn't fulfilled. There was long hours, long nights. The money was decent. I was doing okay, but my wife wasn't ever seeing me, and it's like I needed to find something different. And she would always tell me, you have a way with kids. Kids are always drawn to you. You're always talking to kids. And I was like, you know what? I have a friend that was a teacher before me, and he was talking it up at the time. I was pursuing a music career. And so now I'm actually making learning songs, but back then I was making more songs that was just more personal expression. So he was like, you can tour on the summers and do teach and it's like that stability for your family. So that's why I started pursuing teaching. And I completely fell in love with it. I realized like, man, I think this is what I'm made to do. So started off in an inner city school district, 14 square miles, Harlandale and San Antonio. They served a lot of the homeless shelters, a lot of just very impoverished population. But I was just getting results with the kids, and most of all, I was connecting with them. And then found this position at Lackland ISD, and I've been here ever since. So, yeah.
Very cool. So, you just mentioned the words results and connecting. And I
Mhm.
know there are teachers out there who are going, okay, what's the secret? So, do you have a formula that you discovered over the years really works in terms of building those connections? And how would you define results?
Well, results and connection, those are, yeah, two words that have a lot that you can unpack from. But I'll say connecting leads to results for sure. And the way I connect with kids is I like to treat them just like I treat everybody. You find out who they are as an individual, what makes them tick. I'm always asking kids, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite animal? And then I'll say, oh, so you like red horses, something like that, and just make them laugh. But it's those little interactions over time that form connection and just sharing from your own life. I'm a big kid at heart. I've watched a lot of the shows they watch. And things like that. You find out who they are, you connect with them, and results. I just mean taking children that have struggles with learning, or even your GT kids. We call them GT here in Texas. I know there's different terms. It's
Sure.
like gifted and talented, and you figure out how to make learning fun for them, how to inspire them. Once I found out education, like the Latin root word it comes from, it means educare, or I might not be pronouncing that right, but it means to call out, to guide, to bring forth. So that's really what I'm doing, like bringing out the best in a kid, and figuring and helping them realize like who they are. You are meaningful individual. You have a purpose. There's things that you are good at. There's things that you are built for. Things that you are capable of that make you special. So helping them discover that will produce results, and those are the results I'm really interested in. Did this kid develop? Was this child cultivated from the beginning of the year to the end of the year? From their time with me, can we see growth?
Right.
So,
And that was my mindset as well. I came from an early childhood, early elementary background. And for me, so much of results was that exponential growth you saw in a child over the course of the year. And can you help them see the growth? Can you help their families see the growth?
yeah,
And sort of help them be able to recognize you've got this in you, and you've got
yeah,
this, whatever the seed is that they're planting. And to know that, that growth in your year might lead to something totally different and magical in somebody else's year, but you've done what you could in the time you had them.
yeah. We're like gardeners. Like you have to have that mentality. You want to see fruit, but gardening is not microwaving a plate. It's something that takes time, care, patience, and it takes a certain heart to do it and to do it
Right.
well.
And some kids will sprout immediately, and others are kind of like an almond tree where it takes years.
Yep. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's so true. So yeah, I love the job. I'm in it for life. And that's why I said it wasn't anything I set out to do. I kind of come from a rough background myself, so didn't have a lot of guidance, but I'm just thankful that um, I was able to find something that I can be passionate about and actually make a difference in the world.
Well, and I want to unpack both sides of what you do, but
Hmm.
let's start with in the school district.
Yes.
You're fulfilling a role that more and more school districts are sort of starting to bring in, the idea of the STEM or STEAM specialist. What does that look like? Like, what would you describe as sort of a typical week in that job? What are some of the things that you do?
Oh, it's fun. It is an adventure. So at my district, basically, I see uh, every kid once a week. So and we actually did do a schedule revamp. So I'll speak about last year. Last year, I would see pre-K through fifth grade every single day, and then another set of pre-K through fifth grade, and then another all the way from Monday through Friday. So had 33 classes throughout the week, and so they would see me once a week. And I was in the same rotation with the art teacher, the music teacher. Um, so then this year, now they just changed the schedule a little bit to where now I'm going to see just one grade. So all the fifth graders on Friday and all the fourth graders on Thursday, so on and so forth. So yeah, I see them for 40 minutes each class, and we do project based learning. So essentially, we found a company that we work with, TEQ or Tech, and they basically have this curriculum called iBlocks. But really, I'm pulling from multiple resources. And what I love about my district is they really give you the freedom to do what works for the kids, and use your professional, best judgment. Make sure you're hitting those teaks, of course.
Of
But
course.
they really let me do what I do. And so yeah, we're having a blast. Like this last year, we did class pets. So my K through two, they made class pets out of robots. So they're learning about science and the biology, animal characteristics, and then they're getting their technology by learning the robots, how to code, and they're putting on a pet show at the end of the year.
Fun.
And so we just chunk it 40 minutes at a time. And my upper grades did Rube Goldberg machines. So learning and studying the engineering and design process. So who was Rube Goldberg? Why are his machines important? How do those concepts impact us in the real world today? And so by the end of it, they're creating these complex chain reaction machines.
Those
And
are always fun. And
yes,
I assume you've seen there's a kids series of books called Rube Goldberg.
I I didn't I might not have seen that.
I'll make
You're gonna
sure
have to
I
show
show
me.
them to you and I'll drop a link to them as well. Yeah, there's a picture book series, and you've got sort of a child version of Rube Goldberg trying to solve problems throughout their day.
That sounds
And
amazing.
they're really fun. So I'll make sure I share that with you because, yeah, it's just a cool way to add that literacy link in as well. Well, that sounds really cool. So it sounds to me like you're going to be able to really, in your day, focus in if you're doing one grade per day versus trying to change things up all day long. Sounds like
Yes.
that could be a really good opportunity this year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We're doing two new projects, so that's going to be a professional challenge, you know. Um, so we actually have some curriculum designing going on. We call it a YAG, which stands for a year at a glance. So we're getting the big picture overview of which tools are we going to use. We have so many different robots. We have the 3D printer that you heard going on in the background, and so we're going to be doing tiny houses. So they're going
Wow.
to be building little houses and hopefully 3D printing different furniture pieces. We have pin doodlers where they can actually use a pin to, um, you know, 3D build something like right there at their desk. And for the younger grades, we're going to be doing specialty trucks. So they're going to be designing different trucks for out of different robots that we have. So yeah, we have about 6 or 7 different robots that the kids can choose from. So
That's incredible.
yeah,
And you know what? Let's go ahead and define what we think STEAM is too.
okay.
Because I know you could ask 100 different teachers and you might get 100 different answers. I mean, everybody will tell you science, technology, education, or science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. But let's go beyond that. What does that mean to you?
Well, I picked STEAM because, you know, my educational philosophy, you know, I spent some time thinking through that. And it really comes down to bringing kids as much as possible into things that really matter, into the real world, helping them become a part of society in a way that's appropriate and engaging and fun and stimulating. Like you see it with kids, right? Like you put a doll and you put pots and pans. You know, they're going to want the thing that they see mom and dad doing or they see the adults doing. So for me, STEAM represents that. It represents bringing kids into the real world, like, and in teaching them how to play and teaching them how to engage with their environment in a way that is not just fun, but also, hey, it really does something in real life and it has a real world impact. You know, we've seen different iterations of it, like project based learning, but it really is that it's project based learning that focuses on those core subjects science, technology, engineering, art, math that takes real world problems and teaches kids how to solve them. And hey, shows them it's fun, shows them that it's a good time. Like you can go home and figure out, like my little brother, I remember when he was growing up, he figured out how to turn his light on and off from the bed. And we all thought he was so cool. And this was before Steam was a thing, but he had it stringed up and it was like all wired all around. And so his bunk bed was way over across the room from the light switch and he could just be in bed and be like,
That's brilliant. Talk
that's
about
Steam.
problem solving.
And we all had a blast watching him do it. And so it's teaching more kids how to do what he did naturally, because he's like that now. And now he makes cars and he does all sorts of cool stuff. And he's one of those car guys, those cool car guys. But that's a kid that it's like, wow, he did something naturally. That's how he had fun. But that can be taught, and that's what I want to do.
Very cool. And So the Innovative Mind Lab, where did that come from and what does it do?
So the Innovative Mind Lab is just a place where kids can come and learn. I mean, really, the vision started with wanting to serve a certain population. You know, sometimes you have the what, sometimes you have the who, sometimes, you should always have the why. So the why and the what was already there. I'm a STEAM professional, I love educating, but my kids are actually homeschooled. So I'm a public school teacher who homeschools, and something my wife wanted to do and she's gifted to do. And I have 6 children. I think I put up the right numbers. Oh,
You
yeah.
did.
You see yourself.
Yep. No, we're not 7, I promise.
Okay. So, so being around the homeschool world, I was like, you know what? These kids need what I do. I walk into the homeschool spaces and that's what the parents will tell you. They'll say, we're really needing help with STEAM. We're really needing help with, the science, the math, the technology. And so I was like, hey, I think this is a place where I can serve. And it has proven to be true. We hit our cap this past summer. It was only our second summer, and so now I'm having the great problem of figuring out how to scale and service more kids in the next go around. But yeah, we had a blast. You know, I'm going to be putting up some pictures and recaps of what we did on my website, theinnovativemindlab.com. But yeah, so that's kind of where it came from. It's like wanting to serve a certain population with my skill set that was underserved in that way, at least in my city.
And what kind of summer camp programs or what kind of programs did you offer?
So we did half day camps this year. So we put on 6 half day camps, and each camp was like a standalone experience. So one of them, they were building. So the first 3 in June, they had to do with electricity. So I was teaching them circuitry but again, project based. And so the first day they made some light up greeting cards. So they had to, you know, figure out how the circuits work, how to open and close circuits. They're saying, instead of turn on the light, they're saying, can you close the circuit? And can you open the circuit? And they're telling their family and friends, like Steve taught us, if it makes it home to the kitchen table, then
You've
you
done
won.
something right. Yep.
Done something right. So they do things like that. They did light up greeting cards all the way from, in July, our big shebang was water bottle rockets. So it was about rocket science. So we're going to become rocket scientists and we're going to learn about aerodynamics and air pressure and, centripetal force. I was actually able to use some of the things I learned at
Science in the Rockies. Oh,
Science in the
awesome.
Rockies in my July camps. They're right after. So
Oh, that's
they
fabulous.
they love the potato gun. So
That was so
um,
dangerous.
and I know we actually saw you. You were on our convocation. Your beautiful smile was just right there because that video you took of my group. I don't even know if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
And they played that clip at our convocation, and
Oh,
so
fun.
that
I'm
was
so
awesome.
glad.
But yeah, and I'll weave in storytelling because I'm a storyteller at heart too. That's I was um, I was a band nerd, then I was a rapper, then I was I still write songs, and so and at the core of all that, even education, being a teacher, some would say all we're doing is telling stories, right?
Absolutely.
Um, Telling stories. Why does this matter? Why is this important? Where did this come from? So I weave in storytelling. So that was something new this year. I made up 2 characters called Sally Rockets and Skylar. Um, I'm spacing on his last name. Anyway, they're going to be coming out. Those characters were my son and my daughter, and they were helpers, but then they would um, have to go to the bathroom or something, and then all of a sudden, Skylar and Sally would appear and um, create a scenario or a question. And your session, Dr. Diane, was instrumental in me getting that aha moment to weave storytelling throughout the
Oh, I'm
whole
so glad.
So you guys really had a real world impact down here in San Antonio and all those kids' lives because you guys helped me do what I do better.
Well,
So
that makes me so happy. And I have to tell you, the storytelling thing is key. And I'm realizing that on so many levels. There's the regular storytelling, like when you get kids engaged and involved in helping you tell the Three Little Pigs before you launch into all of the STEM STEAM based connections that you're making. But I'm
yes.
also finding that there are so many stories that we weren't taught in school or we weren't told about in school that we're only just learning. The
Mm,
stories about the scientists and the history of the science, the things that were left out of our textbooks.
hmm.
And so I find that by learning those stories and being able to share them along the lines of while we're doing things, that's powerful. And it sort of gives kids, as you were saying earlier, about part of STEM and STEAM is inviting kids into that world and into that space and showing them that they belong there.
Hmm.
Sharing the stories of the people who went before them is also part of that. And when you can bring those real world connections in, I think that's a powerful component of storytelling as well.
How did you come across that? I know you're interviewing me, but I'm curious how you realized storytelling was so integral to what you were going to be doing.
So I have been doing sort of that. I did formal education for years, and then I was a museum educator. And what I found is, as a museum educator, I got kids for anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes.
Mm,
So my job was the aha moments. And
mm.
it was finding those things that would spark, and then I'd hand them back to you. And your job was to take them further, but I was supposed to get them excited. And I'm like a kid myself, and I want to learn, and I'm always curious. And so I started stumbling across some of these stories. And I'm like, ooh, that's a good story. And I would do more research. I'm like, ooh, that's a really interesting story. And so I'd start bringing them into the things I was teaching. So, talking about weather, I'd start introducing them to Archie Williams, who was the first African American meteorologist.
Yeah.
And I didn't know his story until I stumbled on it. I discovered this woman, Nina Draws Scientists, and I found her on Instagram. And I actually
Okay.
had her on the podcast back in the early days. But she would do these incredible things on Instagram where she would highlight women scientists and women
Mm,
engineers. And they were global women from all over the world, different cultures, different stories. And I loved what she did. And so I'm like, okay, I could work in the story of this person into this content. And so I started looking for those stories. And so now that sort of has become something I'm naturally doing in what I do is I always want to match some kind of real world person or experience to what we're doing, because I think that that's giving kids that idea that there's more. And there was also for me, I don't know if you've ever seen the graphic, but with Windows and Mirrors, Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop's work,
mm-mm.
there's a graphic that shows sort of what's been published in children's literature, and it was showing the possibilities. And so the last one I had seen was 2019, and you had the Native American child at one end of the spectrum, where maybe 1% of the books that were out featured a Native American child. And of those, most of them are showing them in a historical context, not showing them in a modern day
Yeah.
experience. So that's really limiting in terms of how they are able to see themselves fitting into that world. And then you go all the way to the other end where you've got the white child who is centered and sees, I can be a rocket scientist, I can be a king, I can be a
Yeah.
this, I can be a that, and that's inequity. And
Yeah.
so, how do we build in the stories to really show the possibilities that maybe are lacking?
Yeah. Representation for sure matters. My cousin was just she's an educator as well, and she works in a district here in San Antonio as a math facilitator. But she was just talking about how impactful the Olympics were, to
Yes,
her, and to see, people that looked like her with brown skin, competing in sports, beyond just basketball and the traditional, where you'll see African Americans,
yes.
primarily competing. And she was talking about, she wrote this really beautiful, um, you know, just Facebook post about how it mattered to her, and I'm like, wow, that's really good.
It matters. It really does. And it matters for all of us.
Yeah,
It's one of those things that I think helps to break down barriers when we start recognizing these beautiful stories.
yeah.
So I
So
feel like STEM and STEAM can do that too.
yes, they need to. I mean, we do ourselves a disservice. The whole right brain, left brain framework. If you don't teach to the whole child, you know, then you're doing them a disservice. So it's like, okay, we want to cultivate that left side, that left brain. Well, don't forget to use the right brain to do that.
Well,
You know?
exactly. And we also, I think, often school is structured so that the child who is book smart and compliant gets praised and elevated. And I think STEM and STEAM it's one of those areas where you're providing a little bit of an equalizer and you're honoring different strengths. And
Yes.
so it may be the kid who's a problem solver or the kid who's able to think outside the box. And that may
Yep.
not be something that's celebrated in the regular classroom as much, but in your classroom, it's a safe space because they're able to take the lead. And
Yep.
maybe others start recognizing them as, oh, that's really cool. So
Yeah.
I see that
Or
in the
even
camps that I do in the programs I do. I'm sure you see that in your classrooms.
yeah, and even honoring the personalities like, you know, um, saw interesting like trend going around social media about personality hires and where companies will hire the bubbly, bright person that keeps the team together, that gives everybody a good experience, that makes work fun to come to. And you know what? Yeah, I mean, how many teams need that person to build a rocket or you're going to be in this thing for the long haul. You need someone that excels in interpersonal relationships. That's a gift. That's a skill set. That's a talent.
It
And a
really
lot of
is.
kids don't have that honored or called out, especially in the STEAM world, because I'm actually a natural creative. I actually went through elementary school. I went to three different elementary schools just because of some of the instabilities and things we were going through at the time. And I literally would have told you all the way through college that I was bad at math. I did not start saying I was good at math until I decided I needed to find a teaching job. And so I was like, I'm going to be good at math. And so I started saying that I'm good. I love math. And, I was like, math actually is cool. And, it's just a mindset shift. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing when I was in my early 20s, but I shifted my mindset. And then I actually did. I started really genuinely loving math. And then I taught it for like so many years and had great results, all the way from the connections I was making with the kids to my actual testing scores, were always top notch. And people would come in and they would think all the kids do in Mr. Payne's class is laugh all day or goof off. And all he's doing is telling weird stories. They'd come out, I'd make up some character. Like for instance, I have a pet bacon in my classroom, and
I
I,
want to
I,
come to your classroom.
I set it up. My pre-K kids, they love bacon. That's his name, and I'll set it up like he's like a real pet, and I'll say he's over here in my closet, and I'll go get him, and I'll have him in my hand, and it's like this rubber bacon, okay, that I found on Amazon. Okay, it's like a little prop bacon, and so I'll have him in my hand like this, and I'll say, "All right, kids. So this is our pet. He's a class pet. Has anybody had a class pet before?" And then I'll say, "All right, now we're gonna do a two-finger pet, and we're gonna hold him." And then I'll be like, "All right, here he is." And then I'll reveal this bacon, this floppy piece of bacon, and they're just like, "Huh?" And they just start smiling, and I'm like, "Let's go around." And they're like, and I keep this story going throughout the whole year, and he's our class pet, and they love bacon. Like you come on Lackland ISD and talk to some of the parents, they're gonna have heard about bacon and his adventures in Mr. Payne's class. So it's just doing things like that. That's
You're building connections and finding a way to bring joy into what you're doing. You
yeah.
might want to keep bacon away from the pig I gave you, though.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to be answering some interesting questions.
I know. No, it's yes. Oh man, Yeah, I painted myself into those kind of corners so many times with the kids, and they'll call you out. They'll say, "Mr. Payne, why do you have bacon with those pigs?" And so like we start to like have this improvisation back and forth. Um, and it's not like an explicit thing. It's just this kids love to play. But then we're gonna start coding. Time to get out your iPads. Let's get these robots going. And who wants to hold bacon on their shoulder while they work? And so they have a little rubber bacon right there. And
I
you know,
love that.
so yeah.
But I think you just hit on something really important too, though, in terms of it's going beyond the textbook skills and it's developing sort of that sense of communication and collaboration, that critical thinking, the creativity, all of those skills that are harder to define, but are the skills that ultimately you need to be employed and to be successful in whatever you do, whether it's working for NASA or working on a Broadway stage. Like
Yep.
those skills apply no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's one of those things that we don't necessarily talk about when we're talking about STEAM, but they undergird everything that we do. I definitely want to continue this conversation over time because I think there's so much more we can talk about. But as teachers are sort of thinking about gearing up for the school year and looking at their plans, if you could recommend a couple of strategies for bringing STEAM into their classroom, what would they be?
Start small. You start small. You start with something that you believe is doable. And if you're not sure what that is, then talk to that person at your district. We all know who that person is at our school, who that person is at our district that is the most techie, steamy person. And you just ask them, what's something small that I can do? How do you eat an elephant? My first principal used to always say, one bite at a time. So you start off with that one bite and you do it no matter how small. And then next thing you know, it just gets the ball rolling. It's the snowball effect. So that would be my advice. Talk to that person, find out that one thing you can do, and then just try it. Jump in. Take a little bit of faith, but you can do it.
And then the very last question, because I love to end with this, is what currently brings you joy?
Currently brings me joy. Um, it's going to be sound super cliche, but teaching. I'm really enjoying the space that I'm in, and being a creative person, it's an amazing outlet for that. And so, just taking my creativity and putting into teaching specifically, I'm coming out with some STEAM math songs, and I have those already on YouTube, and so you can find them at my website. So right now, it's making cool music for kids that's high quality, but also very educational. Hopefully, something the kids and the parents can enjoy.
Awesome. And I will drop links to your YouTube channel and your website in the show notes. Jonathan Payne, thank you so much for joining me on the Adventures in Learning podcast today. It has been such a joy to get to talk with you.
Likewise, I had a blast. Thank you for having me.